Hi, I'm Philip Keach. I'm 50 years old, and it's 10 months since my total hip replacement surgery, and I work at the International School of Luxembourg. I can't really say when it began. I've been an international sportsman when I was younger, and I thought that aches and pains in my body as I got older were payback for time spent doing sport when I was younger. But I do know that in the last 2 years, the deterioration in my hip became really prominent, and it was very quick over a 2-year period. That's the only time I can remember really, was about 2 years ago, thinking there was something wrong. And then in that 2-year period, the deterioration was really rapid from then. I was shocked. I was shocked when the doctor told me I needed a total hip replacement. I thought I was too young. I thought this was an operation for old people. I think the thing that convinced me to go through with the operation was I wanted to be able to do all the things that I enjoyed doing. I wanted to be able to sleep at night, which is always enjoyable, but I also wanted to be able to ride my bike, swim, run, walk, hike, all the things that my wife and I like to do that are important in my life. And the doctor said this was a way to be able to do that again. And so that was the reason why I went through with it. Yeah, prior to the surgery, I'd had, I said the deterioration was rapid over about a 2-year period. And in that 2 years, I tried physiotherapy, and that didn't really work. It helped for a little while, but it didn't really work. I tried different pain management, so pain medication, which helped a little bit, but then eventually not enough. Cortisone injections, which again, for a short while helped, but ultimately nothing was working. No, I didn't ask myself any of those kind of questions. I didn't want to know what it looked like or what it was made of or anything. I'm a big baby when it comes to things like that. And so, no, I just wanted to know what would I be able to do after the operation was done. How they were going to fix me, I didn't want to go into those details. I mean, I was interested. The doctor was really good. He showed me 2 or 3 different types of prosthesis, and he explained the benefits and drawbacks of each one. And then he recommended, based on my age and my lifestyle, he made a recommendation. But he gave me a lot of time. I didn't have to make a decision there and then. He gave me time. He said, go away, think about it, and then, if you have any questions, contact me. But you don't have to make a decision today. You can think and take your time, because it's your decision. You can make the decision. And having that time to think was extremely helpful. I really appreciated that opportunity to consider everything, It's just my wife and me here in Luxembourg, and so everything fell to Gail. She had to help me with everything. So she was amazing. She was very supportive. She came to the doctor every appointment I had with the surgeon. She came with me, and that was a huge help. When the doctor tells you something which comes as a shock, sometimes you stop listening then because you're dealing with the shock. So to have Gail with me in those meetings was really helpful, because afterwards I was able to say, okay, after he said I needed a total hip replacement, what did he say? What was the rest of the conversation? Because I stopped listening at that time. That was a big help. I think in terms of just reassuring me that everything was going to be okay, that I wasn't alone in this situation, that I was going to get expert care and attention from the medical services here in Luxembourg, and just being there and being willing to understand. We were always very active. We are active. We hike together. We train at the gym together. We swim. We ride our bikes and things. So I wasn't able to do a lot of those things. So Gail changed some of the things she was doing so that we could still do things together, and I'm very grateful for that, and it was a big help. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she visited. That's the nicest thing. When I came round after the surgery, and the first person I saw when I was back on the ward, the first person I saw was Gail, and that was, I mean, you drift in and out of consciousness, obviously, in those hours after the surgery, but to be, in the moments to be awake, to know Gail was there, it was nice. And so I would encourage anybody to try and be there on the first day, because you're probably at your lowest in those first hours and a day or so after the operation. So that was a big thing too. Well, she was brilliant, because she bought me a raised toilet seat, because going to the bathroom is difficult when you can't bend your hips properly. So that was very helpful, and she did that. She went out and bought that, and when I came home back to the apartment, the bathroom was all set up for me. She bought some ice packs, so that really helps with to keep the pain and the swelling under control. And so she had she bought about 4 or 5 ice packs. So even though I was using 1 or 2 at the time, there was always ice packs ready in the freezer. She bought me a thing which I could use to pick things up off the floor so that I didn't have to bend down. She bought me like a shoehorn, a long-handled shoehorn, so that I could put my shoes on more easily. And she bought me some elastic laces for my training shoes so that I could slip my feet in without having to tie the laces and things like that. So she really thought of everything, and she also made food when she went out to work. She made food, sandwiches and things, so that I had things to eat in the apartment, so I didn't have to struggle and make too much stuff myself. She made me a flask of coffee in the morning, so there was hot coffee and tea and things. And that was also really, really helpful, particularly in the first few days of being back home, which is quite tricky because it's different to the hospital. In the hospital, everything is set up for people with limited mobility. And when you get home, you realize that, okay, moving from the living room to the bedroom is full of obstacles and things. So it can be a bit challenging the first couple of days back home. But all those things were really, really helpful. No, one thing, we're lucky. We live in an apartment. It's all on one floor, and there's an elevator in the apartment block. So I was able to move around the apartment. There were no stairs. I didn't have to get upstairs, downstairs, and things like that. One thing she did do, though, she prepared the spare bedroom, And she moved into the spare bedroom so that I could have the main bed all to myself, because you're quite tender still for a few days after the operation, and she was concerned about maybe rolling over in the night and maybe banging into me, or because you have to sleep on your back. You can't sleep on your side to begin with, and so you have to remain on your back. And so yeah, she basically moved into the spare bedroom and made sure that I had a completely restful evening, you know. I think that the thing that we didn't do at home, which I wish we had, was we didn't make sure we had a comfortable chair to sit in the living room. The depth of the chair and the angle of the armchairs and the sofa is really important to get up and down when in the first week or so, maybe a month after your operation. And I ended up using a deck chair, like a garden chair, because it had the right back angle and the right sort of seating angle. I think there are better options around there. So my tip to anybody would be get some advice on the best kind of comfortable chair, so that you can sit out of bed in a comfortable place. Yeah, that would be the biggest tip, I think. And that was the one thing maybe we didn't get right, I think. I walk everywhere now, which was something that I didn't necessarily do before the operation. But walking is a fantastic exercise for recovery from a hip replacement. So I'm trying to walk as much as possible, walk to work, walk home, walk into the city. Whenever possible, walk there. That's new. I've been able to resume a lot of activities too, so I can ride my bike again, I can swim, I can hike. I'm even running again now, even 10 months after the operation. Little bits at a time, but it's running nevertheless. I'm eating more healthily. I'm trying to make sure my weight is controlled. I'm not sure it's a good idea to be overweight and have a prosthetic hip. And I'm drinking less alcohol. I think prior to the operation, that was one of the things I noticed, that maybe I was a bit depressed and I was drinking a bit too much wine and maybe the odd whiskey or two, you know. So I'm doing that less. But basically, it's to do with being able to resume an active lifestyle. That's the biggest thing since the operation, is I can do again the things that I used to be able to do, and that's wonderful. I didn't have many questions actually about the surgery itself. I had the utmost confidence in my surgeon. Having met him several times and discussed the procedure, I knew that he was going to do a good job. I felt that very strongly. I had a lot of confidence in him. And so I asked about where would the point of entry be? Would it be at the front, at the side, from the rear? How big would the incision be? What kind of scar would I have afterwards? That kind of thing. We talked a little bit about how he would calculate the prosthesis so that it minimized the risk of any difference in leg length. But my main concern really was not necessarily what the surgeon was going to do to me to fix the problem. It was, I didn't really care what they were going to do as long as I could do all the things that they said I would be able to do afterwards. And that was my main focus, was on, okay, I'm going to get this thing done, and I hope that I can do all the kinds of things that I wanted to do afterwards, and I can, so that's good. I took to the hospital, I took some clothing which I thought would be good for after the operation. So I took a nice new bathrobe. I didn't need a new bathrobe, but I thought it would be nice to have something new and soft and thing for the hospital stay, and so that was very useful to have. I took some cotton pajamas, natural fabric. You spend a long time in bed for the first few days, and so having natural fibres felt more comfortable. And the pajama bottoms were shorts, not long, because your leg is quite swollen after the operation, and having shorts was just easier to get on and off. And I also took some loose jogging bottoms and some nice loose fitting t-shirts, because eventually you'll be up out of bed and around in the ward on your crutches, trying to do some physiotherapy, and they're very easy to get on and off. Footwear, I took some training shoes which were a proper enclosed shoe, but I put elastic laces in there so that I could slip them on and off more easily. And you can get them with like a Velcro fastening too. Tying shoelaces is tricky for quite a while after you've had a hip replacement. There must be something about bending down and the movement to tie shoelaces. So the elastic laces were really, really good. And because you're up and about moving with the physiotherapists, when they get you up and about, you need a stable shoe to put in. So slippers are no use. It's got to be something fairly stable. And so training shoes were good. Yeah, I like to read, and so I took an e-reader, so that I had all my books that I could dip into from time to time. I took my headphones and so that I could listen to music on my iPhone and listen to the radio. I like crosswords, so I had a few crossword books that I could do. You spend a lot of time asleep, or at least I did, in the days after the operation. I think sleep is a really important period for your body to start to recuperate after a traumatic experience like that. And so you spend a lot of time asleep. And so I never felt bored in the hospital, because when I was awake, I had something to read or something to listen to. But a lot of time, as I say, it was spent resting and recuperating in that way. No, I'm very lucky because I live in a small apartment and everything is on one level, so I don't have any stairs to negotiate or anything like that. And there was an elevator in the building too, which made things very easy. My wife and I don't have any children, so we didn't have to worry about children's toys being left around. We don't have a dog or any other pets. So I would imagine if you live in a house and you've got children and pets and things like that, maybe there's a bit more preparation to do to make sure that the route from the bathroom to the bedroom, for example, is clear of any obstacles that you might trip over, especially during the night when you're trying to maneuver on your crutches with a very, maybe a painful hip, and that would be a difficult period. But no, we were lucky. We didn't have any cables to trip over. When we were trying to make food and things, Gail would make food and she would leave it out on the countertop in the kitchen. so that it was easy to get. I didn't have to bend down into cupboards or reach up into storage areas and things like that. So when we made drinks in a flask, then we left those easily accessible too. And those kind of things really helped. But in terms of remodeling whole rooms and stuff like that, no, we didn't need to consider that too much. Yeah, our bathroom is tiny. So we have like 2 bathrooms. We have a bathroom with a shower in it. There's no bath. It's just a shower, a basin, and a toilet. And then we have another room with a toilet in it. The room with the toilet only in it, that's where we put the raised toilet seat. And that became my bathroom for the period that I was at home for the first few weeks. Clearly, when I needed to shower, I had to use the other bathroom. And showering was something that for a while I needed Gail to help me to get in and out of the shower, to make sure that I didn't slip on the bathroom floor and things like that. But that was not such a bad thing, really. Regarding the anesthesia, I had heard that some people went through this procedure with a local anesthetic. So they were awake during the procedure, and I did not want to be awake. I really am a big baby when it comes to this kind of thing. And the thought of being able to hear what was going on and maybe see things and that, I didn't want that at all. So I talked a lot to the anaesthetist about the different options for anesthetic, and I made it quite clear to the anaesthetist that I really wanted a general anesthetic so that I was completely out for the whole period. I wanted to sleep through the whole thing. I wanted to go into the surgery and then wake up later with everything done. I didn't want any other kind of experience. The night before the surgery, I was admitted to hospital the night before, and the nurses on the ward gave me something to make sure I got a good night's sleep. And I did. I slept very well. I was very comfortable. And then they woke me up quite early in the morning, and they helped me prepare for the surgery. So they shaved areas around the hip and waist region. And then I had to shower thoroughly with some like antiseptic soap and some special mittens, which were, and they showed me how to wash myself that morning, because it was important to be as clean as possible, obviously. Once I was ready to go down to the theatre, they came and took me down to the theatre. I waited for a short while in kind of an area where there were 2 or 3 other patients waiting to go into different theatres for different procedures. And then I went in to the anaesthetist, and it was a familiar face because I'd met him before and talked about things. And that was really nice because he smiled and said good morning and said, you know, are you ready for your welcome cocktail? And I remember smiling at him, and it eased a bit of the tension. And then I remember waking up in the recovery room after that. When I woke up in the recovery room, I remember being in quite a lot of pain and discomfort. The nurses in the recovery room were very quick to respond, and they quickly got that under control, and they were able to help me to settle down a little bit. I remember being quite agitated actually when I came round. I felt very, very uncomfortable and what have you, but the nurses quickly helped me to calm down. And then I remember, I don't know how long after that, but I came round again, and I was being taken up to the ward again. I was in an elevator going up to the ward, and from that point on then the rest of that day it was just drifting in and out of consciousness really. But I remember feeling comfortable, and I remember coming round later in the day and being conscious and seeing my wife and saying hello and then drifting off again, and then her being there again when I came round. It was only really the next day that I started to sort of balance out and be fully aware of what was going on again, really. I think the most reassuring thing about my stay in hospital was the way that the nurses and the physiotherapists and the surgeon all seemed to be working closely together. They all knew, it seemed, what needed to be done in terms of providing me with the best possible care. And I don't know that that would be the same in every country or every place. You know, I guess the teamwork was very strong on the ward that I was on, and I felt like all the nurses, when the nurses changed shift, for example, the new nurse coming on, I never felt like they didn't know who I was or what I needed. And when the physiotherapist came, they knew me and knew what I needed and where I was at in terms of my development. And sometimes it was a different physiotherapist on different days. So that was really powerful, I think, and very reassuring to know that everybody knew who I was and what I needed. With regard to the pain management in hospital, that was really good too, because I was able to administer, I had sort of a pump mechanism, and I was able to control the pain medication. And then at night I was able to have sleeping tablets to help me to sleep. The other thing which was good, I don't know, maybe it's the general anaesthetic or something, but going to the bathroom was delayed for several days, and that got quite uncomfortable. And so I talked to the nurses. The nurses check with me every day. Have you been to the toilet? Have you produced a stool? You know, and so I was able to keep them informed of that, and they helped me with some kind of some medication which loosened and relaxed things, and that was important to resume natural bowel function again. And that made a big difference once, you know, after 3 or 4 days that started to get back to normal. That helped me to feel a lot better too. But I think that's a common reaction to a general anaesthetic too. For me, I think the whole success of the hip replacement procedure, it lies in how you respond to your physiotherapy, your re-education. If you commit to it and you listen carefully to what the physiotherapists say and you do exactly what they tell you to do, you will recover. If they tell you to exercise more intensely, then do that. If they tell you to stop, then stop. Don't try and take it into your own control too quickly. These are highly skilled people, and and they understand precisely what's happening with the muscles and ligaments and all the other elements of the operation and the impact on your musculature and stuff. So yeah, I honestly think that, you know, clearly the surgeon has to do a great job. That's the first thing. But once the surgeon has done a great job, it's really down to you and your response to the physiotherapist. And get a good physio and do what the physio says. Listen to them, do what they say, do the exercises, and rest when they tell you to rest. That's a difficult thing for, you know, maybe young and active people to rest. You always think, okay, well, if I can do this, then maybe I can do a bit more, and it must be better for me. But that's not the case. So the physiotherapy I've received has been outstanding, and as I say, 10 months on from the operation, and I'm almost back to 100%, I feel. Not quite, but I'm almost there, and in another year or so, then I think I'm going to be fine. And that's really down to the surgeon and his skill, and the physiotherapists and their understanding of what I wanted to be able to do. The goals we set together, the physios and me, we set goals together, and they said, what do you want to be able to do? So I told them, and they said, right, then we don't stop until we get you as close as possible to that. And I think that's the thing. Set a good, clear objective with the physiotherapist, and then knuckle down and do it, you know. Since having the operation, I can now do all the things that I used to be able to do. I can't yet run as far as I could and for as long as I could before, but I can ride my bike, I can hike, I can swim, I can go for walks, I can put on my underwear and my socks, and I can be fully independent again and be very, very active. And prior to the operation, all of those things had been affected and got to the point where I wasn't able to do any of those things with any degree of regularity. So it's been profound, the change since before the operation and afterwards. I think the best way perhaps to think about it is that every day before the operation, the pain, the discomfort, the lack of mobility, the general feeling, everything got a little bit worse every day. And since the operation, every day, everything has got a little bit better. So it's the exact opposite trajectory than before. And I think, you know, that's wonderful to be in a position where each day I can look forward to another little bit of improvement and another little bit of life and activity coming back to me. Whereas prior to the operation, it just seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse. If you and your doctor agree that the total hip replacement is necessary, then I would recommend you do it as soon as possible. Commit to the operation, commit to the physiotherapy, commit to the re-education, work hard in rehabilitation, be optimistic throughout, and you know, keep a good sense of humour, and you will make an astonishing recovery, I'm certain.